Attis of Phrygia, born of the Virgin Nana on December 25th, crucified, placed in a tomb, and after 3 days resurrected.
Here is the list of alleged comparisons made by Zeitgeist from Attis. But once again, on closer examination of the items on this list, one will discover Zeitgeist and its contributor, Dorothy Murdoch, have played fast and loose with the facts, to make them appear to be similar, when in fact they are not. 1. Nana was not a virgin. In fact, some scholars trace the Babylonian origin of this name to the harlot of Inanna, the infamous whore of Babylon figure referred to in the later book of Revelation. Herodias records nothing resembling this claim. The story alluded to comes much later, and rather than being a virgin birth, it is rather another case of Zeus impregnating one of his goddesses, though this time, through the medium of shape-shifting castrated genitalia from an offspring. Hardly a fair comparison to a virgin birth. 2. As mentioned earlier, the December 25th date in Roman Catholicism was not instituted until Pope Sixtus III in 435 CE, 400 years after the time of Christ. Many Christians continue not to recognize this day or its festival in keeping with the New Testament, and even the earlier Latin fathers such as Origen and Tertullian, who renounced the solstice and its pagan sun god celebrations. Thus no direct link can honestly be claimed here. 3. Attis was not crucified, but castrated himself under a pine tree because he was angry over a lost love. The comparison of this to Roman crucifixion is simply asinine. 4. He was never dead for 3 days. 5. After 150 CE, over a century after the life of Christ, this episode was embellished with the addition that Cybele restored Attis to life from the dead after his self-inflicted castration. But even this claim is the subject of debate among scholars. Princeton theologian J. Gresham Machen noted that, quote, "The myth contains no account of a resurrection. All that Cybele is able to obtain is that the body of Attis be preserved, that his hair should continue to grow, and that his little finger should move." Dr. Walter Burkert, Greek religion scholar and author, states, "There is no evidence for a resurrected Attis, even Osiris remains with the dead." The entire comparison uses material from centuries after the spread of Christianity, and the claim these elements were original to the original pre-Christian myth are simply bogus fraud and rejected by scholars and experts in the field. It is interesting and quite hypocritical that Zeitgeisters like to claim the appeal to science, when it is precisely science as applied to the study of antiquities, it routinely and openly rejects, labeling it a conspiracy. How is this any different than fundamentalists who make the same claim concerning evolution?
Krishna of India, born of the Virgin Devaki with a star in the east signaling his coming. He performed miracles with his disciples, and upon his death was resurrected.
Devaki had 7 children before Krishna was born, of which he was the 8th. Devaki was never considered a virgin, and the very idea that someone would claim Krishna was born of a virgin on December 25th, leaves one Hindu scholar shaking her head in amazement. Dr. Vasudha Narayanan is the professor of religion of the University of Florida. She also holds a distinguished professorship and chair at the University of Bombay, India, teaching Hinduism in India and the diaspora. She is considered the leading scholar of Hinduism within the United States. She is the author of 6 scholarly books on Hinduism and 90 articles, including encyclopedia entries on Hinduism. She is a former Guggenheim Fellow, a National Endowment of the Humanities Fellow, President of the Society of Hindu-Christian Studies, former President American Academy of Religion, and serves on the editorial board of the Journal of American Academy of Religion. This is what she had to say about Krishna being born of a virgin on December 25th.
I've never heard of Krishna being born of a virgin either through Sanskrit or vernacular texts, or even folklore. And born of December 25th? Wow. The texts say explicitly that he was born on the 8th day of the waning moon, in the month that now comes approximately between August 15th and September 14th. I can't imagine why people would sit back and cook up all these conspiracies.
Unlike what is claimed in Zeitgeist, there is no reference to a star in the east in the account of Krishna's birth. Quote, "Then there was the supreme hour all auspicious and most suitable with the constellation Rohini rising and all the stars and planets in a favorable position. Everywhere was peace, the multitude of stars twinkled in the sky, and the cities, towns, pasturing grounds, and mines were all their best. The minds of the saintly, oppressed as they had been by the Ashur, turned perfectly contented, when in that situation the kettle drums together resounded with the unborn one to be born." End quote. Twinkling stars in the sky are a far stretch from a single star identified signaling the birth of Christ. There is no quote, star, unquote, in the east, in the account of Krishna's birth. Zeitgeist claims Krishna performed parallel miracles to Christ. The life of Krishna is summarized as follows. On his return to Mathura as a young man, Krishna overthrew and killed his uncle Kamsa, after avoiding several assassination attempts from Kamsa's followers. He reinstated Kamsa's father, Ugrasena, as the king of the Yadvas and became a leading prince at the court. During this period he became a friend of Arjuna and the other Pandava princes of the Kuru kingdom who were his cousins. Later, he took his Yadava subjects to the city of Dwaraka in modern Gujarat and established his own kingdom there. Krishna married Rukmini, the princess of Vidarbha, by abducting her from her wedding on her request. According to Bhagavata Purana, Krishna married 16,108 wives, of which 8 were chief. Krishna subsequently married 16,100 maidens who were being held in captivity by the demon Narakasura, to save their honor. Krishna killed the demon and released them all. Concerning the Kurukshetra war and the composition of the Bhagavad Gita, once battle seemed inevitable, Krishna offered both sides the opportunity to choose between having either his army or simply himself alone, but on the condition that he personally would not raise any weapon. Arjuna, on behalf of the Pandavas, chose to have Krishna on their side, and Duryodhana, chief of the Kauravas, chose Krishna's army. At the time of the great battle, Krishna acted as Arjuna's charioteer, since it was a position that did not require the wielding of weapons. Krishna displays his Vishvarupa universal form to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Upon arriving at the battlefield, and seeing that the enemies are his family, his grandfather, his cousins and loved ones, Arjuna becomes doubtful about fighting. Krishna then advises him about the battle, with the conversation soon extending into a discourse which was later compiled as the Bhagavad Gita. That is the summary of the Krishna story. There are no parallel miracles to Christ. Later in history, after encountering Christianity, and in imitation of Christ, folklore introduced legends to create parallels, but no such parallels exist in the pre-Christian story of Krishna. This fact is recognized and admitted by modern scholars. If plagiarism did occur, Zeitgeist actually has its account backwards. Zeitgeist claims Krishna was resurrected paralleling the resurrection of Christ. But this is the account of the end of Krishna's earthly life. At a festival, a fight broke out between the Yadvas who exterminated each other. His elder brother Balarama then gave up his body using yoga. Krishna retired into the forest and sat under a tree in meditation. While Vyasa's Mahabharata says that Krishna ascended to heaven, Sarala's Mahabharata narrates the story that a hunter mistook his partly visible left foot for a deer and shot an arrow wounding him mortally. There simply is no resurrection present in either account as Zeitgeist has deceptively claimed. How exactly does anyone claim with a straight face, this blue man married to 32,000 wives, is an exact parallel of Christ? Nothing could actually be more opposite in many regards than these two personas. Zeitgeist, and its contributor Acharya S., aka Dorothy Murdoch, not only misrepresent these differing traditions, but in some cases, there are claims here that have been simply totally fabricated. Let's do math the way that Peter Joseph does religion. Do you see all these equations? Well, you see, they are all just a bunch of numbers. And if you add them all up, they all equal the same result, which we shall arbitrarily call 3.